You're listening to 92.1 West Coast Radio 2, the Gambia's news authority.
We're talking to the inimitable Mamadou Sabally, new campaign manager of the country's biggest opposition party, the United Democratic Party, the UDP. Sabally is with us officially up to 10 o'clock, but if needs be, we will keep talking until he runs out of something to say, which I don't think will ever be possible. How will this affect your new role as UDP campaign manager and how you approach the local government elections?
Well, I think it's actually set the tone for my new role because, no exaggeration, Peter, but people send me messages on Facebook. I was at this political party. Now I'm joining UDP because of this incident. I was NPP, literally. Now I'm joining UDP.
Really?
NPP, yes. I actually have the message here. I can show it to you. And I've not gone through all these messages. Even some opposition parties, and I will not mention those opposition parties.
That must scare them dead, if you like.
You know, NPP, they know Modu Sabally. They know how I do my politics. Barrow knows what's going. The moment I was appointed campaign manager, one of their top executives called me and said, it's my brother. But you know how this country is, Peter, and that's why we should avoid this unnecessary drama.
But you are Barrow's brother, yet he would sit there and allow you to languish in,
You see, my sister is in their party, my cousins, one of their top executives, and okay, we all prayed for you to get this position, but please don't break our party. Don't break NPP. Before my detention, I had a political parties allied to Barrow. Their national women's president ready to join UDP. A top NPP chairman in the hinterland, who is actually had at least 1,000 followers, is ready to join the UDP. And I've not even started my politics yet. So this thing has, and that's why I am personally grateful to the entire country, and UDP is grateful because the Gambians did not sit back and say, this is UDP Usainu Dabo thing. They said, this is Gambia. We don't want the wrongs of the past to be repeated. So this has actually amended some broken relationships. Because, you know, in the heat of the political field, sometimes people, emotions can be ruffled. But some of those people, they just came back. People who would be insulting me and criticizing me, they said, no, I mean, despite our differences, we in this together, we defending Sabally. And this is a blessing. You know, I have a senior friend who came to visit me. He said, people talk about collateral damage, but we UDP, we're getting collateral benefit out of this, and we'll make the most out of it. And, you know, it's very unfortunate, Peter, that the occasion to use TikTok, that was about lightening up the message to politics, and they use this and create this unnecessary drama. You know, my first political act for UDP as campaign manager was going to be a settle, because there's a group within the UDP called Yai Campaign Task Force that wanted to come and do a settle opposite the party leader's residence. That's the strip from the American Embassy down to Pipeline Mosque.
Kairaba Avenue.
Yeah, I was going to join them. That was going to be my first political act that very Saturday. You know, and they deprived me of that opportunity. You know, that was supposed to be the signal that there is a new dimension to my politics.
Exactly. I was just about to ask, how will how will you rebrand, if you like, the UDP? And how will your approach to electioneering differ from what was? Because for the presidential election, for instance, most people just assumed that this was UDP time.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, the result proved everybody wrong, if you like.
Well, I guess lessons were learned. I think even before I came into the party, UDP was on the path of rebranding. And it was quite clear. Even the first Congress after the change of government, you could see it. So UDP was actually on the path of rebranding. If anything, maybe I'll just add flavor to it. And I'm going to be working with Mayor Talib Ahmed Bensouda, who is the national organizing secretary, and of course with the guidance and support of the party leader and secretary general. If you look at what my very good sister, my special sister, Mayor Rohi Malik Low is doing Banjul, I love her politics, Sometimes we don't even discuss it, but I just sit down and say, I love what my sister is doing.
What's so special about what she's doing?
Well, you see Rohi championing women's empowerment causes, youth empowerment, and giving an international dimension to these issues. Recently she was on BBC. Because, Peter, listen, and people don't know this about Mamadou Sabally. I take my politics as service to God. Because in this process, I'm meeting people, some old men. They hold my hands for 1 hour. We love you. We love what... Sometimes just my WhatsApp audio is transforming lives. So Rohi Malik Low, what she's doing, beyond winning elections, she's building future leaders. She's building future mayoresses, future female presidents. When Rohi goes into the space there in Banjul, sometimes you don't even see her in yellow. It's like Banjul coming together, rallying behind, but Rohi is our Rohi, first female mayor ever. So you have all of this, and that's why, Peter, I'm telling you, UDP was already on a rebranding path. The only thing is Allah has blessed me with communication skills. And like I said, I'm connected with everybody and with the passion. I think... really, politics has changed in this country forever, inshallah.
Communication skills you have in abundance, and not just that. We'll talk about your economic skills, if you like, as well. Your expertise as an economist. So, how are you working with Talib Ahmed Bensouda? And define the two roles for me. He is administrative secretary for national organizing secretary, and your campaign manager. So what's your role as campaign manager? What's his role as organizing secretary?
Well, the two roles are fused somehow because we are
they sound similar to me.
Yes, and it's okay because there was a campaign manager before me, and he was working smoothly with Talib. So Talib has all these regional organizers, and they're working with him. And I have all these, UDP is the most structured. Our party is even better structured than the Gambia government. I can tell you that for free. So I have all these regional campaign managers, constituency campaign managers, ward campaign managers, village campaign managers that I'm working with. But
you are just sharing some of your secrets now. They will go around and start, establishing those structures.
But I told you we are on a path of rebranding, and so before they catch up, we've gone to the next step. So they're going to the moon, we are going to Jupiter. So we are all in the same committee called the National Campaign and Organizing Committee, which Talib heads. I am there as the secretary, and Talib's deputy is here, my good brother Ibrahim Adiba, and I'm not going to go into the details. Like you said, we don't want them copying us, and of course we've seen what Talib has been doing. He's got experience in this. He's been in this for 2 years. And for me, I'm like that free player in the team who can go anywhere. That's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. No protocol. I go anywhere I want to go and do my politics. And Talib has gathered a lot of experience. He's gone around the country. And we've seen, of course, the good work he's doing in KMC. And I see Talib how he's connecting with some of the minority groups and bringing them closer. You see Talib organizes programs. By default, you see Nene Freda Gomez, who is not UDP. You see MC Cham Jr. So I'm going to be working with Talib. And actually, he came and visited me at PIU and gave us our first opportunity to have our first official meeting on what we will do. I will not share the secrets.
Okay. Before the Congress, there was talk that, you brought up his name, there was talk that Talib Ahmed Bensouda was aspiring for the leadership of the UDP. In effect, he was going to contest the leadership against Ousainou Darboe. It didn't turn out. Where did that talk come from?
Well,
and what effect has it had on the party?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. Personally, I've never heard Talib mention this. And I think in every party, even outside the country, you'll have the Democratic Party, you have different segments of that party. It's just natural So I think some misunderstanding happened, and we were able to trash it out. And actually for me, especially, we just had the inaugural meeting of the new executive, and people spoke to each other, and Talib, when we met at the PIU, we spoke heart to heart. Said, you are my brother, we are going to work together. I mean, there are certain challenges, but I think you and I, if we speak to our people, we'll be able to trash out some of these little ruffles here and there, bring the party together. And
what are some of those ruffles?
Well, like you just said something that some people accuse Talib of something, yes. And Talib has cleared the air. He's made himself understood. Like we had this inaugural meeting, we all spoke, everybody who had any, because sometimes if you're far away from somebody, you could have certain assumptions about him. When you come closer, or when you have a dialogue, because this happens sometimes. If I have suspect something about Peter's attitude towards me, I go to buy Serin Koli boys, and then Peter talks to buy. But once I sit down with Peter, what's the problem? The problem is resolved. So whatever misunderstandings were there, were thrashed out. And later, when we had the first inaugural meeting, I think all the misunderstandings, whatever, and they were not major, became a blessing in disguise. This party is more united today than we've ever been. We are one family under His Excellency, our party leader and Secretary General, Lawyer Usainu Dabo.
So the UDP lost the presidential election.
Allegedly.
Okay. Didn't, win the most seats during the National Assembly elections. Why is it important that the UDP should emerge from the forthcoming local government elections the strongest of the contesting parties?
Well, because of the clear circumstances, the election results, as far as I, Mamadou Sabally, am concerned, are still disputed. Not only by the UDP, but also the GDC.
Which of the elections? Presidential?
The presidential elections disputed. And as far as I'm concerned, me personally, speaking for myself, I still want to go to the bottom of that. I still want to question, interrogate, challenge the National Electoral Register because it's flawed and we all know it, as testified to by a National Assembly member in the Republic of Senegal. People like D.E.A. Jao felt vindicated. We said something was wrong with the electoral process. So that happened, and Barrow and NPP, I think they thought UDP was dead. Really, the impact was huge on the party. But then, by the grace of God...
Well, before the election, he said he was going to effectively kill the UDP and retire Usainu Dabo.
And I think he meant it. But you know what the Quran says... They plan and Allah also plans, and the best of planners is Allah. So I think Barrow could have done that. Wallahi, I mean, to be honest and objective. But stuff happened after the election. Some of us, we went back to our people, constantly bombarding Peter, literally thousands of audio messages in Mandinka, in Wolof, even translate them in Fula. I personally tell them, UDP is still the biggest party. We have the majority. We are not going anywhere. We need to be resilient. At some point to encourage the youth, I even use Sadio Mane in the Cup of Nations and how he was able to lift the entire Senegal out of the challenges, and the youth started getting motivated. Ibrahim Adiba was out there, and then the National Assembly elections came. And again, Barrow and his team went after Mamadou Sabally, their biggest problem. They did something that was never done in the history of the country, rejecting somebody's nomination at the very point that he is submitting his nomination, and we know it was pre-planned. So when that happened, of course, there was a scuffle in Brikama, young people clashing with the paramilitary. We went to court. I think that process re-energized our party. Because when we lost the election, and we know there was foul play, a lot of people practically gave up. They said, there is no point in politicking again. There is no point in voting again, because you're going to vote, and the whole world expected UDP to win. We lost. Our people were deflated, they were discouraged, some said they left politics, but we kept the pressure to bring the people back. So when that rejection came, and I went to court, I knew the courts would not give me what I deserve. I knew it. But I insisted on going to court, and I insisted on full-scale media war. That energized our people. At the 11th hour when I was rejected, I endorsed Mohamed Kante, the independent candidate who got our backing, and still our people were angry. Some of the party supporters, they were not going to vote because there is no use in voting A group of women in Nyani Barajali, who adopted me as father, they swore that they were not going to vote. Somebody had to call me from Barajali at night for me to speak to them. Why don't you want to vote? They said, your rights have been abrogated and your right is our right. In Mandinka, these are women farmers. We are not going to vote. I said, no. If you do that, you make the oppressors to win. I said, the only way you can bring back my rights is to go out and massively vote for all UDP candidates. That way we can use the legal process and all the democratic processes. So this is a party that's showing its resilience, rebounding onto the scene. So this is like a process. We've not reached the climax yet, almost on cruise control. And that is why, and Barrow is helping my politics. Rampant corruption, minister taking money, giving to his wife to go and watch Foyantu, and then admits and says we will refund. We've not seen it. Meanwhile, prices are going up.
No, he has refunded. We have seen evidence.
Doesn't make it right anyway. It's still a crime that's not been prosecuted. I heard when I was coming on your program, the analysis, I think, is coach. Corruption cases not being prosecuted. Central bank being hacked and people not having their salaries on time.
We'll come to that.
I'm just analyzing the political scene because you challenged me. How do we win the local government election whilst we lost miserably at the presidential and Barrow has the money? So I'm telling you, so Barrow is making my life easy. The killing of the 66 children and then Barrow laughing at the country saying, yeah, the health minister is doing a good job. Gambians are not happy. We are resilient, we are rebounding. Barrow is making it easy by creating unnecessary problems. We are going to sweep the entire country in the local government elections, inshallah.
Sweep.
Kaina to Kartong, inshallah.
Okay, after the elections, I'll remind you of that word. Sweep. We are getting text messages for you, but we really need to, just build on what you just started.
Yes.
The economic management skills, of this government.
Or the lack thereof.
Or the lack thereof, indeed, yes. The past 2 years have been very difficult for Gambians. You could say even, more than 2 years. But with the advent of COVID, everything first was blamed on COVID, then Ukraine, Russia came, and life is getting more and more difficult for Gambians. And studies have shown that we are getting poorer every day. But we also listen to, the Christian leaders saying that it cannot be the will of God that only a tiny few will thrive when the majority of Gambians are suffering, living in poverty and misery.
Amos and Hosea.
The economic situation of the Gambia during the past 12 months, possibly 12 years too, as seen by Mamadou Sabally.
Well, Peter, I'm not surprised at all. At the turn of the year, by January after the elections, I made a post on Facebook, and I know lawyer Hassan Martin was quoting it constantly at the Panderi Star FM Wake Up Gambia show. I said, Gambia, fasten your seatbelts. We are going into the macroeconomic doldrums, and the situation is going to get worse. And I've said this in audios, literally more than 100. The economic situation is going to get worse, and I've written, Peter, more than a dozen open letters to the finance minister on the macroeconomic situation of this country, way before COVID, Russia and Ukraine, way before all of these problems. Economics is a science, it's a social science, but it's so complex now that, Peter, if I show you the mathematical models that we use now to analyze the economy, you will think it's a model for a space rocket. That's how rugged the science is. Macroeconomic management is just based on one principle: cut your coat according to your cloth. Don't spend beyond your earnings. But this is the one rule that the government disrespects more than any other rule. You're spending more than the revenue that you are earning, and you are borrowing unsustainably. If you borrow and spend that money responsibly, it brings back positive effects. But you borrow, and then you start organizing tours and foreign trips and, buying luxury cars. You are not only making life difficult for the current generation because the debt stock will rise, inflation will rise, your currency will depreciate. And Gambia is a very unique, peculiar country. We are a small, open economy, and we import practically everything that we use. So what other countries like Nigeria can afford, mistakes they can afford, we cannot. Because the moment you start spending beyond your earning, inflation rises. What happens, and as you are borrowing, interest rates are rising. Peter wants to build a TV station here. He goes, interest rates are high.
Yeah.
Peter's adverts become expensive. Life becomes expensive for Gambians. So whilst all this inflation is happening, your currency is depreciating. If pig milk was $40, which it was, now it will become 50.
Yeah.
But, like I said in one of my letters to the finance minister, the author, Ola Rochimi, the gods are not to blame. It's our own fault. So this is what they've been doing. I remember when they did the 50% salary increase, and I said, this is wrong, it's unsustainable, it's going to cause macroeconomic instability. Some public servants insulted me. But what happened? Immediately that happened, what happened? They hiked the tax rate on Julbro by more than 700% and destroyed an entire industry.
Yeah.
People lost their jobs.
Yeah.
So, it's so sad. I've spoken about all of these things. So when we come to a situation where they say COVID or the economy was destroyed before COVID, before Ukraine, port charges were hiked up way before COVID, way before Ukraine, tourism was destroyed by there, this all-inclusive, and to add insult to injury, they had this $20 security report thingy. Mistake upon mistake, error upon error is what brought us here. Now you come, last year what did they do? They did a revised budget, right? To increase expenditure again. I said, you cannot foot the bill that you have, but you want to spend some more. You are worsening the problem, and then they bring this other budget. Inflation, Peter. I've done my good.
And also increase National Assembly members' allowances and wages, especially that of the speaker.
Well, the speaker with the robbing allowance. God does not mean. They wanted to say robbing. They said robbing
I know.
Because it's robbery.
Everybody picks on that, exactly. Well, it's their own doing.
Exactly. So you come up with a budget as if the problems you've created, Peter, just the collapse of Julbro should be a scar on the conscience of this government.
Costing 200 Gambians their jobs.
And Peter, the ripple effect on the tourism industry, tourists and their beer.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not only 200, maybe it's 1,000, because tourists, if they can't have beer, they'll go somewhere else where they can have beer. A lot of more young people losing jobs in the tourism industry, creating extra crime in the society. So they come to the budget. One would have thought that they would try to correct some of the wrongs of the past. You have inflation at more than 13%. If you go to the time series of the Gambia's economy, for the past 20 years, inflation has never reached 11%. So they're creating a new record. So what we know from macroeconomic theory, especially if you are from the Milton Friedman School of Thought, monetary economics, if you increase your expenditure beyond your revenue, you will borrow, your economy will be unstable. But at inflation at 13%, one would have thought that they would bring down expenditure. They increased expenditure by more than 13%. When the minister himself is telling us that revenues are going down, and even the donors are apparently losing confidence, grants are also going down. So you're making the situation worse. So 2023 is going to get worse. Inflation will be higher. Interest rates for borrowers are going to be higher. And you know what's bad about inflation, Peter? Businessmen, even those who are not educated, they know the economy better than me. If inflation is 13% and your interest rate, your deposit rate is 10%, if you keep your money in the bank, you are losing instead of gaining. So they're not going to save. What we know in economics is savings is equal to investment. The money that is saved is the money that is borrowed and invested. If investment does not happen, how do we create jobs in this country? How do all these thousands of graduates get jobs when government is practically not hiring anything? Then you have some of these bad policy decisions like the dollar decision for foreign currency denominated accounts. People deposited their money, their hard-earned cash into their accounts. All of a sudden, and the dollar was depreciating because of the mismanagement of the economy. But they came and punished innocent Gambians. Peter, you have $1,000. Yes, that's fine. But we are not going to, when you want to withdraw it, we'll give you dollars at a rate that's actually lower than what the market is giving.
Oh, wow.
So what's happening? People will get discouraged. People will keep their monies in their houses, and that's not good for the economy. So it's bad. I repeat my words. Fasten your seatbelts.
I have text messages for you, but I cannot, start reading the text messages without asking for your take on the acute kidney injury wahala, because that was one of the biggest talking points of 2022, to lose 70 innocent lives. How do we deal with that situation, having lost these children, just because we, whether knowingly or unknowingly, gave them poison to drink?
Absolutely.
As cough syrups.
Peter, it's really bad. And again, I'm loath to say it, but I have to say, I warn the entire country that with Dr. Amadou Samate at health, the health situation is going to get worse.
He has the full backing of the president.
Well, only the president, and that's good enough, because when I said that, the majority of Gambian social media came and attacked me. Now when they talk, I said, I told you. He doesn't have the leadership skills or neither the acumen to manage the health sector. You had divisions within the health sector, nurses versus public health officials, doctors versus public health officials. And I made audios on this. And I know Dr. Samate listens to my audios. And I know he's listening to me. You cannot divide a house and expect it to stand. The Bible told us that house will not stand. When this AKI thingy, it's a public health issue. But what was happening in the past, public health officials were on strike because they felt discriminated. Samate was keeping malice with these people. And it's not just that, Peter. And I want to thank the Foroya newspaper for the work they're doing in this country. There was an oil spill in Mandinaring, between Lamin and Mandinaring. 70,000 liters. It went into our food chain because we're getting our fish, our crabs, our yohos from this. And they swept it under the carpet.
All of which I eat, by the way.
You see, and these are all public health issues. So the public health cadre were not happy. They were not able to do that. So when the AKI happened, what did they do? A doctor did a press release about crossing CROSSING, paracetamol tables instead of tablets. You advising the public. And they also, a priori, they say this is the cause. And then, no, it's really heartbreaking, Peter. And, okay, let's say we can blame each other for everything. But when situation happens, you cannot make it not to happen. So we seek solutions. But now the problem with this government, that is where they even mess up even more. Instead of taking responsibility and apologizing to the country, the president says his health team is doing a good job. The president says in his speech that this is contaminated medicine from India. Some little guy from MCA comes to say it's because of the flooding. This is the biggest mockery of victims in this country. Even the past regime never did this. And then the people, MCA, who should take responsibility for this, are part of the people who are supposed to investigate this, Peter. This is very sad. This is cold-blooded. And Gambian children don't deserve this. Gambian mothers don't deserve this. Unfortunately, the message I'm getting from India is that they kind of, so to speak, defend the Indian pharmaceuticals. I said, why wouldn't they, if Barrow is defending his health minister and his health team? My friend lost his daughter yesterday, a 1-year-old daughter. I don't know what killed her. Allah knows best. But my man went back to his AKI thing. I'm not saying that that's what caused it, but it's scary because I have a baby.
Yeah. Well, I'm not making them anymore. Almost 13 minutes past 10 o'clock. We have to end. I mean, it's fun having you in the studio, and I'm enjoying our conversation. But since we asked people to send in text messages, let's start dealing with those, and hopefully we will finish by 10:30. Good morning, Peter. I like Sabally very well, but his problem is Sabally does not act or behave like a minister. Sabally was one time handling the highest ministerial post. He needs to comport himself as a former minister and stop the childish behavior, especially on social media. Can't he learn from Dr. Njoguba? Dr. Njoguba did politics for NPP massively and in a very professional and diplomatic manner. And that has earned Dr. Ba the same respect as a former minister. The word or message is, let Sabally change his wild or aggressive way of politics as a highly educated someone or a former minister. Thank you. Your reaction?
Well, the point is, this is a problem with some of the people who observe me. They see me as a former minister. I just see a young Gambian ghetto youth doing his thing, and I am a graduate from Ralph Waldo Emerson School of Thought, Self-Reliance, Henry David Thoreau. We don't want to have anything to do with conformity, and all of my mentees are within that school of thought. We are supposed to change things, like Steve Jobs would say. The unruly ones, the rebels, they are the ones who change the world. We are here to change the world. We are not conforming to anything.
Disruptors.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
All right. Text message. Since the Supreme Islamic Council has secured your release, why not let bygones be bygones rather than resorting to court? And this is coming from Ali Umbai. at the Serekunda market. Good to know that people at the market are listening.
Well, I salute them all at the market there. I hope the price of onions. That's quite interesting,
Actually, some are
Peter.
suggesting that, there was a time when it was coming down, but some are suggesting it's going up again. The price of jabo.
Yeah.
Jabo is onions, not so.
Yeah. Well, I think it's gone high. I think Barrow...
That's what I'm saying.
They're giving him the wrong...
There was a time when, it was going down and government was, taking platitudes for it, but it's going up again.
It's up. So on the Alumbai guy at the market, like I said, I think maybe he didn't hear when I was responding to your question on that. It's nothing personal. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. But lessons have to be learned. And this is not just about Mobutu Sabally. This was an idea and a principle that Gambians came together on across the religious or political line. So I cannot arrogate myself to the position of having to decide what's going to happen. I'll have to consult everybody.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Gomez. Please ask Mr. Sabally what will be his take if the government should use the Islamic Council to prevent him from suing them to court.
Well, like I said again, it's not going to be me. And if my supporters and my family should take that decision, I'm not saying that's what they would do. I don't want to preempt them. If they want me to go to court, nobody can stop me from going to court. With all due respect to all the players. Like I said, it's nothing personal. It's not about vengeance. I'm perfectly cool. Lessons have to be learned. We don't want this to happen to other young politicians in this country.
All right. Hello, Peter. How are you? I say assalamu alaikum to Mr. Sabally. And letting him know that all good people who passed, most of them were jailed. So just keep on, be patient, and continue your dawah, or should it be dua? Is it dawah?
Well, I guess both.
Okay. What's dawah? Dua is prayer.
Dua is prayer. Dawah is calling people to God. So
okay. Well, dawah is the one that is here. D-A-A-W-A-H.
I do both.
Okay.
I do both.
All right. Morning, gentlemen. Happy for Sabally for gaining his freedom, albeit through the intervention of SIC. Is it legally correct to arrest anybody without a warrant from the court? It seems the police continues to violate the law of the land irresponsibly. Well,
just tell him the Attorney General is violating the law of the land. How can you blame the police? This government is not interested in rule of law.
Good morning, Peter. Sabally's interview is full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I can assure you and your listeners that NPP has the most comprehensive network of party structures than UDP and any other party in this country. Sabally will be shocked with the way NPP will shake the political landscape in the campaigns for this local government.
Do I have to respond?
Well, I mean,
we've had the echoes from their Congress. It's not sounding very good. Hello.
Good morning, Uncle P. Please remind Sabally that we removed Jammeh with the absence of Dabo. We'll easily remove Barrow if Dabo did not contest. I think the UDP should start working on that.
We love our Dabo. He stays. The Congress just elected him party leader and secretary general, this time for 4 years, not even 2. And Dabo loves him too. Mm-hmm. I know some of it is out of love. Dabo loves everybody and is willing to serve everybody. And inshallah, Dabo will become president of the Republic of the Gambia. Inshallah. By the grace of the good Lord.
Okay. Good morning, Uncle Peter. Does Mr. Sabally believe in the 13% inflation? I believe it's understated. The way things are, I feel inflation is at 60%.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Peter. The point is, like, when I speak about economics as a professional economist, I just stick to the actual data that I have. So I would not say what he said, but it is plausible that inflation is actually understated by the government authorities and is higher than what they're saying. That is possible.
Good morning, Peter. A bag of onions is $1,200 as at now. That is $1,200. I hope it doesn't reach $1,500 before Ramadan or later.
It's very possible it will reach it. I'm not praying for it, but inflation is going to be much higher in this country.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
$1,200. Hi, Peter. Good morning. My question to Mobutu Sabally. During your detention at the PIU headquarters, is there any time they intimidated or tortured you to take your statement? This is coming from Sidiko Suno from Faraba Banta.
I was not intimidated. I was not tortured. But, we have to put these things under context. If a police officer comes and said, we're inviting you, then he said, we've been asked to arrest you. Then you go to PIU, you get this mammoth deputy IG in a black car staring at you. It's Mamadou Sabally, you can't intimidate me, but if it happens to somebody else, a younger person with less experience, the situation was not good. Yes.
Good morning, West Coast Radio. Honorable Slay is the type we need right now. He's bold and straightforward with his thinking and his thoughts. Telling him to be quiet is the same way of telling a father in his household to be quiet. The man is representing the most respected and well-established political party. Apparently, not everybody wants you. What a toned-down version of Mamadou Sabally.
You know, Peter, there's something going on in this country, and that's why.
Assalamualaikum TikTok, Assalamualaikum Gambia. Bal konton nal tula nal kontong ana badi malong asabri kam mba flale ko de fen fendi yal nako be moroko le bang wala ibe Gambia la bang ila fa fenne kila moroko bang wala molo be moroko ikanunte ala fa fen kile na Gambia ja nal da handile say betale la rankan ibasoto la bata kuteji ni ku ya kuteji fengo kike ibasoto la sone ya kon batate marieji ni mari lafta kuma ko yosoto la no ba screen mobile isa bunjulula.
Side's opinion, but I am me, I decide what I want to do. Even some of my supporters, they say, no, maybe you should tone down. Change in politics in Africa. It cannot be in a hush-hush tone. I am not part of the hush-hush nation, and I have that hashtag. Hush-hush, Gambia hashtag. We are changing this country, and the young people are ready. We are going to speak our mind. You know.
Somebody who goes to the market, because this is from a woman. Uncle Peter, a bag of onions is now 1,300.
I'll take the woman's version, Peter.
And 75.
I trust the woman. She goes to the market.
Almost, I mean, this guy is saying 1,500 by Ramadan.
Well, didn't I say tell you it's possible?
Already 30, it's already almost 1,400. And given the way things, go up in this country on a near daily basis, maybe by next week it's already 1,500. Good morning, Mr. Gomez. Please ask Mr. Sabally what will be his take if the government should use the Islamic Council to prevent him from. Okay, we had this one before. The person is only identifying himself. They
should just speak and clarify the Supreme Islamic Council's position on this. They are here to mediate, but they also said they're calling for respect of human rights and freedom of speech.
And that would mean allowing Sabally, to be Sabally, as long as he doesn't plunge the country in chaos. Please tell Sabally to respect the law of this country. What laws did you break?
Amen. Tell him we said amen. That's why we are here, so we can speak to people under the law, and so people do politics under the law. Tell Barrow to respect the laws of the country, and Dawda Jallow. That's what we should be saying.
What laws are they not respecting? What laws are they not respecting?
Well, they just detained me illegally for 10 days, and every lawyer knows that the court order was a mess.
Good morning, sir. Mr. Sabally was in finance. Suggestions that he was collecting money on Jammeh's orders. Is he any better than the ones currently there?
Well, I never collected money on Jammeh's orders when I was at finance anyway. That is wrong. I didn't even have access to Jammeh when I was at finance.
Good morning, Uncle Peter. Please remind Sabally about what Alma Mittal said before the general elections. In politics, one should not talk too much. If not, he will swallow his own words.
Well, if you don't want to talk, then don't get into politics. That's our job, to talk.
Politics is about talking?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Happy New Year to all listeners of WCR Coffee Time. We had somebody doing my job. Happy for Mr. Sabally to be in good shape. Government should look into the continuous increment of our food commodities. If a UDP government were to come to power, how would they tackle this cost of living crisis? It's lingered on for years.
Now, absolutely. And Peter, to be honest, the global macroeconomic situation is challenging. But the point is, like I said, economics is complex when we do our analysis. But the basic principles are simple. Do not get yourself into unnecessary, frivolous expenditures that you cannot sustain. So the UDP's approach at the get-go would be to try to balance the budget, quote unquote, but balancing the budget doesn't necessarily mean you spend exactly what you have. But if you are borrowing, there are thresholds and macroeconomic parameters that you would look at that will tell you this is what you can borrow without necessarily doing damage to your economy. A UDP government will not give $150,000 the past to Ousseynou Dabo at State House. And these are things that are creating all these inflationary pressures. A UDP government will not come before election and promise 100% increase in salary that they know they cannot sustain. That's what Barrow is doing. So we are going to be a responsible government that will respect the tax money that we are collecting and prioritize sectors like agriculture, health, education, rather than buying expensive cars for ministers and taking political hooligans to UN General Assembly, spending like millions of dollars. UDP government will not do that. The first step here is to close the valves. Excessive expenditure, rampant and outrageous procurement fraud is what is destroying this country. UDP norms are already challenging that in the assembly. When we come, the curve will be smooth. We'll be all on an equal playing ground.
Earlier, you couldn't help, taking a swipe at the IEC. I mean, what needs to be done in the area of electoral reform?
As far as I'm concerned, the entire electoral register should be abrogated and we go into fresh registration that will allow Gambians with the right to vote to have voters' cards and to strike out all the foreign voters who were registered. And also, I think Aliu Mamanjai should retire. I think the man is old. And I think the IEC itself should build their capacity. And because election processes are quite complex. What needs to be done also, and the IEC cannot do it alone, our security forces need to be independent and get out of politics. Because foreigners are crossing into the Gambia to vote. Because immigration opened the borders on the night before election beyond the regular. I mean, this is outrageous, Peter. It's a collective effort. It's not just IEC. I'm criticizing them. I maintain my opinion on them. They can reform, but the security forces have to reform. And the citizens should also take responsibility. You know why UDP won a lot of seats in the parliamentary election? Because our boys went to the borders and stopped some of these foreigners coming to vote. So that is not just UDP's responsibility. And a former minister said UDP should have done more after the registration process. But it's not just UDP. The country does not belong to UDP. I mean, we are a party, and our doors are open. Ousseynou Dabo's doors are. I think we should work together. Peter, this is not about you and me. You've been there, done it. Radio Gambia, Deutsche Welle. You mentioned you have your own radio. Mamadou Sabally, young as I am, mashallah. Sufi Emon Sahamone. We should do this for our children, Peter.
I'm trying not to go beyond 1:30, even though, there's still, many more questions that come from. Yes, indeed. Whoever said the UDP should have done more, meaning they should have done better at, the previous two elections, I concur. After the presidential election, and I had Sila and Sankare here, I told them to their face that they should not take for granted that the 52% that voted for Barrow all believed in his program or were all NPP. There was this perception that the UDP was too aggressive a party, and they allowed people to just insult, particularly other tribes. Why is this tag of an insulting party, following the UDP? I mean, earlier on you said that, you were going to, to ensure that whoever was found insulting in the name of the UDP would be expelled from the party immediately. Your leader said this at the last Congress.
Just a minor correction. If I say that people will say UDP should do more, I'm not talking about the campaigning and everything, like trying to avoid electoral fraud and to stop all these electoral That's not UDP's sole responsibility.
No, not at all.
It's our collective responsibility.
It's my responsibility too.
That's what I meant. In terms of UDP's politics, I think we did the right things, sold the right message, knocked the right doors, pushed the right buttons, and I believe the majority of legally registered Gambians voted for UDP. Electoral fraud is what prevented us from getting into government. Regarding the aggressive label on the party, whatever. What people have to understand, and I'm relatively new in the party, but this is a party that has been here, survived what people have called the worst dictatorship. You don't do that selling ice cream. But the party has evolved, and when you ask me about me rebranding, I told you the party was already on that path from 2016, rebranding, adjusting. Peter, you know what's happening? We know where insults in this country happen? It's WhatsApp, it's not even Facebook.
True.
NPP is insulting more than UDP. I told you UDP TikTokers, when they came from a young man from NPP. He's insulting people's mother on TikTok. And this, because he's NPP, I embraced him. The first day he came to my house, he said somebody advised him, if you go to Sabally's house, he'll beat you up. I received him with the UDP TikTokers. I encouraged the UDP TikTokers to work with him. In fact, they're doing community service. Our people are not the ones insulting. NPP is insulting as much or even more than UDP. What we know, and I've never heard NPP leadership telling their people not to insult. They insult me. They insult my mother. Before the election, NPP threatened me. Their regional head in URR. He said, if I go into any Sarahule village, they should beat me up physically. The party never condemned them. But it's only UDP, Alhaji Usainu Dabo, constantly talking to some people whom we found out now never believe in our party because they've switched. Maybe it's because we said, enough is enough, no insult. They've switched to NPP now, and they are insulting us. We had a resolution on this issue. The party is on a path of transformation. It's transforming our young people. They are vibrant. They are energetic. We even own Gambian TikTok. We are not insulting. We are lightening up the message, and we are cool. Be rest assured.
Perfect timing. Exactly 10:30. We said we were never going to go beyond that. Mamadou Sabally, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And Happy New Year to your party leader. He's possibly one of the biggest fans of this program. I'm sure he's there listening now.
I know that. I know that. Thank you.
Happy New Year, Lawyer Dabo, and Happy New Year to all party heads. And Mamadou Sabally, thank you once again for coming to the program.
Thanks for having me, Peter. I think it's a blessing. You know, when I was sitting before I came, your voice rose to a crescendo that gave me a Radio Gambia commentary moment. Beautiful. God bless you and preserve your golden voice.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Coffee Time with Peter Gomez, the first edition of 2023, and what a privilege to have Mamadou Sabally as our first guest of the new year. We'd like to thank all our sponsors, especially OIC.
Assalamualaikum TikTok, Assalamualaikum Gambia. Bal konton nal tula nal kontong ana badi malong asabri kam mba flale ko de fen fendi yal no ko be moroko le bang wala ibe Gambia la bang ila fa fenne kila moroko bang wala molo be moroko ikanunte ala fa fen kile na Gambia ja nal da handile say betale la rankan ibaso la bata kuteji ni ku ya kuteji fengo kike ibaso la sone yakon batate marieji ni mari lafta kuma ko yosotola no ba screen mobile isa bunjulula. I will see you soon.